So you just want your visual effect or motion graphic without all that pesky background stuff? Well, why not export it with a pure green background and key it out in your editing software or OBS livestream? Because that's insane! Never do that! Your quality will be... Hey, and welcome to Solving Effects. By my count, there are 5 different ways to create a video with an alpha channel from After Effects. If you don't care about all the ins and outs, then use the chapter skip thingies to skip to the bit that you want to do. I won't be offended. Okay, see you. My god, can you believe they actually skipped ahead? The one type of video file that cannot have transparency on export is MP4. In the codec wars at the start of the 21st century, a faction known as H.264 won out and has dominated web-based video ever since. But a flaw was hidden in the file format. It is unable to store an alpha channel, dooming us all to black backgrounds for all time, if you want to use MP4 that is. I just use the term alpha channel interchangeably with transparency. Let me explain. Videos and images have 3 color channels, red, green and blue, but there can also be an extra channel, shown as a black and white version of the image. White denotes areas where the image is completely opaque, and black completely transparent. That extra channel is dependent on the file type and or compression type, or codec of course. And then there's straight or pre-multiplied opacities to consider, which might get ignored, and because, look, Captain Disillusion explains it better. The Apple Quicktime ProRes option. This is the proper way to do things. The ProRes codec is designed for editing. As such, it is visually lossless. But it is not designed to be an end product. Windows' various media players won't play it, for example. But you can bring the result back into After Effects, Premiere Pro, Media Encoder, DaVinci Resolve. Okay, I won't mention that other editors exist. And of course, you can use your ProRes videos in OBS. To export, it's simplest to use the render queue. So get your video ready, and if you don't know what your transparent video will look like, you can use the the transparency grid, to see what's going to stay and what's going. Although in this example, I've added a lens flare to a black solid, and set the transfer mode to add. And anything I want to be alpha is black. But if I go to the Effects and Presets panel and search for Unmult, a preset appears that uses the Shift Channels effect, along with the Remove Color Matting effect, to render the lens flare background as transparent. So once you actually are happy with your comp and the transparent background, go to File, Export, Add to Render Queue. In the render queue, click on the Output module, and in the Settings panel that pops up, mine always defaults to QuickTime and Apple ProRes 422, meaning it provides 422 color sampling. But 422 cannot contain alpha channel information, so we need to change the format options to Apple ProRes 444. Then we can set our channel's options in the video output to RGB plus alpha. And you get prompted to choose pre-multiplied or straight. As long as you know which you've used, you can use either, so long as that's taken into account when the editing software interprets it. Incidentally, if you do need to produce the same video in a variety of formats, it is much quicker to render out a ProRes version, and then use that with Adobe Media Encoder to render out your copies. This way you're only rendering the effects once. Imagine you are working in a situation where your editor is using a system that cannot handle ProRes, but does know what they're doing with track mats. They want you to provide them with a regular video and a second alpha pass. I also quite like separate passes as there's potentially more control, and 3D programs quite often use separate passes, not just for alpha channels, but also for ambient occlusion, normal passes and all sorts of extra steps. So, with your comp ready, add it to the render queue or media encoder. And then with the queued comp, select it and go to Edit, Duplicate, or hold Ctrl and tap D. If I click on High Quality in the Duplicates Output Modules section, you can see the video channel is set to RGB. I can change that to Alpha. And when I render from the render queue, I'll get 2 videos. I've left both of mine as QuickTime, but this applies to all file formats. And it works in a similar way if you're using Adobe Media Encoder. From the File menu, I'll select Export, Add to Adobe Media Encoder, and when your comp appears in the queue, use the Add Output button to duplicate your row. Then click on the link in the preset column, and at the bottom of the video page, choose Render Alpha Channel Only. Depending on your PC, you might well see both versions rendering at the same time. However you make your separate alpha pass, once it's rendered, you can bring it into After Effects again. Then use the track matte controls to select the alpha version from the RGB version, and then change the track matte to Luma matte. If you were doing this in Premiere Pro, add both channels to the timeline, with the alpha channel clip above the RGB clip. Then from the Effects menu, search for Track Matte key. Add this to the RGB clip. Select the layer your alpha passes on, in this case it's video 3, and change the composite using to Matte Luma. If you are using DaVinci Resolve, yes Adobe, but come on. Bring your two passes onto the timeline, with the RGB pass above the alpha pass. Then in the Inspector panel for the RGB pass, find the Composites section and set the composite mode to foreground. Switch over to the alpha clip and set its composite mode to Loom. I've made both of these steps as separate short videos you can send to your editors, links in the description.
No, there is another.
Instead of rendering out a massive file or two pretty big files, why not render out lots of small files? Or maybe you want to have an animated texture in your 3D program? Last time I checked, software like C4D seemed to cope better with image sequences than it did decoding video. From the render queue, open the output module and in the Format drop-down select PNG sequence. TIFF or Targa sequences work as well, if you're a fan of larger files. Then in Channels, select RGB plus Alpha. This renders you a transparent image per frame, so no audio obviously. Image sequences work well for sharing content and for render-heavy projects where you can render bits, send those on, and then send the rest of the render later. While H.264 did indeed win the codec wars, Google was not satisfied, and in 2010 launched WebM, a format they own, which presumably means they don't have to pay a license for. I'm just speculating here, but that license argument might explain why there's no native support in After Effects for it. Fortunately, FNord has been offering a free Adobe Media Encoder plugin for ages now. Head over to FNord's website, download the operating system version you need. Once installed, send your After Effects comp or rendered video with Alpha Channel to Media Encoder. In the Format column, choose WebM, then select Custom, and in the Video tab, check the box for Include Alpha Channel. If you do not see this checkbox, for instance, you might have already installed FNord's plugin and it has disappeared after an AME update, then you need to uninstall FNord and reinstall it. In Windows, you can do that by going to Add or Remove Programs and search for FNord. Mac users, I assume the process is similar. Buy me enough coffees to buy me a Mac and I'll look into it for you. When you do have the checkbox, you don't have to make any other changes. Just click OK and set Media Encoder rendering. Here's what it looks like on a web page. So here's the thing. HEVC, which uses the codec H.256, can support transparent videos, but you can only produce these on macOS. While you can make H.265 videos in Adobe Media Encoder, you cannot include transparency, and HEVC videos are only supported in Safari. If you're on a PC, then you can make web videos using VP9, which will play in Chrome and Chromium, but won't play in Safari. So you have to render out both versions and then include both when creating a video player, which by the way means you have to host the videos. There's no uploading to YouTube, as YouTube transcodes all videos back to MP4 equivalents. And currently, despite several guides I tried on the internet, I have not found a way in March 2025 to use Adobe Media Encoder to include an alpha channel for VP9 or HEVC. Googling about this returns a lot of results for Rotato, but I've never used that, so cannot endorse it or anything else. Several videos I clicked on suggested After Effects could be used, but all of them turned out to be render out a ProRes video, then use Rotato to convert it. Lottie files started with Bodymovin, a plugin for After Effects that allows you to export vector graphic animations that are scalable. It is perfect for shape layers, solids and text, although I have an issue with Font Awesome fonts, which caused me to have to crash out of After Effects. Bodymovin does support images, but not video. And of course Lottie files support transparencies. When you have a comp ready to export, and I'm using my subscribe animation as it's built using shape layers, not that you have to subscribe or even like this video, it's just that it works in Lottie. So once you have your animation and you have the extension installed either from Adobe Exchange or AE Scripts, then you also need to go to Preferences, Scripting and Expressions, and check the box to allow scripts to write files and access network. You only have to do that once, of course. Then go to Window, Extensions, Bodymovin. In the panel that opens, find your existing animation and select it. And click on the 3 dots to set the final file's destination. The cogwheel settings button lets you make some choices around what to do about images. I chose to convert the image to code, so I would only have one file to deal with. You could try using the preview, but I could never get it to work. So instead, it's time to hit render. I do find with Bodymovin it's best to build up the animation, as the end result might not match your comp exactly. For instance, keyframing the source text doesn't work, you have to split the text layers instead. To work through these iterations, you can sign up to a service like lottiefiles.com, or a better option is to preview directly on your computer. Bodymovin animations work in the browser by using scripts, and most, if not all, browsers these days block local scripts from running. So you need to set up something to mimic a web server. I use VS Code, link in the description. You'll need to get this Lottie.js script, but Bodymovin provides a link in the Get the Player button. Just download that and keep it next to your web page. Here's a simple web page which I'll include a download for in the description. All you need to do is identify your saved JSON file, in my case channel.json, then press the Go Live option at the bottom of VS Code. When using your actual web service, you'll need to check you are allowed to upload custom pages and javascript.js files. But that's it. All the ways I can think of in 2025 to export videos with transparencies. For me, it boils down to 2 options. ProRes for editing or streaming, unless the other program can't handle it, and Bodymovin for web animations. One day we'll get there with H.265, maybe H.266.